Good morning, everyone. Last night I had a nightmare. I do not like to fly, and my nightmare was about flying. It scared me, so that fueled the video for today. I used to travel extensively with my grandmother when I was growing up, and it wore me out. It kind of burnt me out from the whole experience. I don't like getting on an airplane. Every time I do, I get sick. I don't like the crampiness of the seat structure in airplanes. It's too close for comfort. I feel claustrophobic. I don't like the long delays, and I don't like those airports that have gates like A to Z and you have to walk 20 minutes but your flight's in 10 minutes. Also, when traveling long distance, I experience excruciating ear pain, so that's another reason I don't like to fly. When I think of traveling now, I think of staycations. There are a few options near me. I live on a shoreline away from a city. I'm kind of rural. So when I want to go on a mini vacation for a night or two, I look for local, authentic places. I like to support local owners. I look for places that offer specials outside of their normal seasons so I can get a better deal. One such place is set back in the woods on many, many private acres. The reviews are stellar. They're 5.0 across the board on Google, Yelp, Travelocity, their own website, everywhere. Online, the pictures showed nice and updated renovated rooms, but that was far from my experience. When I pulled up, it was a very long, rocky driveway. I was the only car. At first I thought maybe I'm not in the right spot, maybe I came to the wrong place. There were two big doors you pulled open, and when I walked through them, I got instant musty odors in my face. It took a while for somebody to come out front to greet me. There was nobody there. There was a telephone, and there was a little tiny podium of some sorts. It wasn't even a front desk. And I thought, what is this place? There were instructions on the wall, and it was kind of creepy. I felt like I was in a Scooby-Doo episode. It said, pick up the telephone, and it was one of those old-fashioned rotary phones from my decade of the 70s and 80s that my grandparents still had. And I thought, oh boy, good thing I know how to operate this thing. And it said to dial whatever number. So I did that. I hung up the phone, and then like 10 minutes later, after I'm standing there in this musty smelling foyer, a man approached, and he said, hello. He didn't act like he knew who I was, and I felt like I was in a stranger's home. I thought I must have taken a wrong turn. I must not be where I'm supposed to be. And I said, I'm so sorry to bother you. Is this the inn? And he said, yes, it is. And I said, oh, okay, I have reservations for this evening. And he says, oh, okay, come this way. And he showed me the stairwell that I had to walk up, and it was an old wooden staircase. It reminded me of my great grandmother's house, you know, the kind with all the old wallpaper. It was far from the renovated modern images I saw online. The stairwell creaked loudly. I almost felt like I was going to fall through the stairs. And I thought, wow, do I really want to proceed upstairs? But I did. I followed the man, and there were 4 doors. I felt like I was on a game show. Pick 1 through 4. Which door do you want to go through? And my room was door 4, and it was on the left side. And I thought, I wonder what's behind doors 1, 2, and 3. So he opened the door with a key, and he escorted me inside. Outside of my door, nobody else's, but outside of mine, was a mini fridge. Innkeeper explained the mini fridge was for everybody. If I had brought a bottle of water or something to drink for the morning like orange juice, I was welcome to put it all in there. But it was also shared by the other 3 rooms. To keep that in mind, because he said you don't want to hog up the mini fridge, it's for everybody's use. And looking around at the closeness to the other doors, I thought, this place is advertised for honeymoons, and I can't imagine spending a honeymoon in here, being so close to one another in these guest rooms. So right off the bat, I got a weird vibe from this place. I wasn't planning on eating anything because I had already stopped for dinner somewhere, but the innkeeper explained there was no food allowed in the rooms. There was no alcohol allowed on the premises, no smoking. I don't smoke, so that's fine. and there's no room service, but it was advertised that the room did come with breakfast. So I asked, is it continental or what can I expect for breakfast? I'm gluten-free, I have a lot of food allergies, so in all honesty, I wasn't expecting much that I could eat anyway. And he said, oh, I make it to order whatever you want. And I said, oh, okay. When you stay in a bed and breakfast, you expect that, but this wasn't a bed and breakfast. The reviews kind of surprised me about this place because they were all so superb, modern, clean, impeccable, but that wasn't what I experienced. Anything from the hardwood floors that creaked and some were cracked, to the sofas, to even the bathrooms were at least 50 years old. The sofas were horribly worn out, probably full of dust mites, which would explain the sneezing that ensued after I sat on one. And it just kind of dumbfounded me, like, how could people leave such impeccable reviews? Maybe I just got an old room. So I asked the man, did you newly renovate the other rooms? And he said, no. So at that point, I was feeling very leery about the place. Like, what is going on here? I had expected the man to leave me be, so I could put my stuff away, so I could get ready for bed or whatever I wanted to do, maybe watch some television, try out the whirlpool that everybody said was exceptional online. But instead, he said, I need to tell you a few things. And I said, oh, okay. He said, there are rules here. Now, I wasn't expecting that. I felt like this was more of a dungeon than a nice stay at an inn. I said, what do you mean there are rules here? What kind of rules? And he said, first of all, everything you see in here, I picked out myself. Every single thing. You will not destroy it, ruin it. I said, well, of course not. What? I'm sorry? Do you have a lot of problems with that? And he said, no, because I set forth the rules when people arrive. I said, oh, okay. Now I'm kind of like panicking inside, like, is this for real? Or am I on candid camera? This is strange. I should have checked myself into a hotel. He went on to explain that everything in the room was antique. He hand-selected antiques from local antique markets. He said, with the exception of the bed linens and robes. He said he special ordered bed linens and robes that were more comfortable than hotels. He said, you will not stain them. You will not ruin them. You will not get food, dirt, anything on my bed linens or robes. If you do, you will pay for them. And they were hundreds of dollars. Well, that terrified me because I'm thinking, oh boy, not that I had any food. I didn't have any water. There was nothing in the room, and you couldn't even have food or water in the room. But I was so terrified, I didn't even roll down the comforter. I slept on top of it, thinking I don't dare get like a speck of dust on anything. He stood in the doorway just looking at me. I smiled and I said good night, and I went to shut the door. And he said, just one more thing. I said, okay. And he handed me a placard of rules. He said, you are to return this in the morning when you check out. I said, okay. He goes, I don't make extras. I give them out as people check in. Okay. And finally he turned and he left. And I shut the door and locked it, thinking, he has a key. After traveling to this place, and it wasn't easy to find, I needed to sit down and rest for a moment, collect my thoughts. I was thinking about checking right out and leaving. But it was pretty hard to find. It was in the middle of nowhere, out in the wilderness, so I thought, well, I'll just stay and make the best of it. So I sat down on the couch, which was horribly dusty and old, faded, and, the cloth was actually worn out in some places. But the fireplace was fake. I realized that after that the pictures online showed a working fireplace and people cozying up on a couch. But that wasn't the case. The fireplace was actually fake. And there were like props around the room, like a tray table that you would have for eating, but yet food wasn't allowed in the room. I then got up and looked at the placard of rules, thinking, what else could there possibly be as far as rules go in this place? And the rules were simple. There were a few stated rules. One was, do not operate the jacuzzi or shower after 10 p.m. because we do not want you to disturb other people staying at our inn. And I thought, well, that's really odd because people come and go and take showers and have to go out and come back and take showers. Like, what? I've never heard of such a thing. In addition, they had one of those old-fashioned bidet toilets. So they had a regular toilet, then a bidet toilet. I've never used one of those. Because they had a bidet toilet, they issued each room a half a roll of toilet paper because they expected you to use the bidet. And I thought, I should have packed my own toilet paper. At 10 p.m., there was a knock on my door. I was kind of standing in the room just thinking about having a drink of water, which I didn't have because there was none. I was thinking, should I go out and get a bottle at a convenience store and just drink it in my car? But instead, the innkeeper appeared at the door once again and knocked. I went to the door and I opened it. And he was starting to scare me at this point because I'm like, this is not typical of staying at a place like this at all. Like, I've never personally stayed at an Airbnb, but I can't imagine an Airbnb owner hovering over their paying customer like this. And it really spooked me. And he said, I'm just checking to make sure you understand my rules. And I said, yes, I do understand your rules. I said, so no running the shower or tub after 10 p.m. He says, that's right. So it's lights out for you. It's 10. I was like, wow, okay. Also, I didn't realize this. There was no cable television. So even if I wanted to sit down and watch some TV before bed, that wasn't an option. For a moment, I thought, well, maybe I'll see what's in this cupboard. It was a beautiful cupboard. It was antique and it looked like something out of the Chronicles of Narnia. Had a big mirror on the front. So I went to the cupboard and I opened it to see if there was an extra blanket. Because whenever I've stayed at a hotel, even a motel, they have those extra cheapy blankets in the closet area. So I thought, well, maybe I could just get one of those and throw it over myself on top of the comforter so I don't dirty the sheets. But there were 2 robes in this cabinet. And they were stark white and they were freshly cleaned by a dry cleaning service. They were folded precisely with the robe belt tightly wrapped around them. And I said, no way, I'm not touching those. And there was no extra blanket. So I just got up on the bed and laid down on top of the comforter and made the best of it. I got up naturally at 7 a.m. I had somewhere to be that day. So I was going to be racing off and checking out by 7:30 in the morning. While I was getting my things together, there was another knock on the door. It was the innkeeper. He handed me an envelope, and on it, it said tip. It took me a while to register what that was for. Like, I thought to myself, does he want a tip? And he said, this is for our innkeeper who comes once a week. He started telling me her life story, which was a very sad story about this woman. And it almost sounded like a GoFundMe page. He also proceeded to offer me breakfast. He said he could make anything I wanted. Just let him know. Breakfast was served at 10, and I would be seated downstairs in the kitchen with him and his family. Thankfully, I had a meeting to go to or something, and I had to get out of there. So I politely declined. Even if I could eat anything I wanted, there was no way I was letting that man cook for me. I was going to attempt to take a shower. It was an open room. The walls were tiled. And the shower head had been installed at a very awkward position in height and angle, and there was hardly any water pressure at all. It would have taken me a really long time to rinse out my hair. I decided I would just shower at my house, and I never went back to this place. But today, the reviews are impeccable. 5 stars across the board. One thing I noticed when I left, I was the only car. There were no other guests. Nobody else stayed there. I wonder if the man is reviewing himself. The second stay vacation I had was at a place further away. It was about an hour, hour and a half drive, depending on traffic. It was right on a beach. I had never even heard of this hidden gem. I don't even recall how I found out about it. But my first night there was amazing. I stayed overnight. They have a 5-star restaurant right in this place. This is considered a hotel, but to me it was more of a resort. They had delicious gluten-free food I was able to enjoy. Because the hotel or resort was right on the water, every room had a water view. Now, of course, you check in the evening in these places, so by the time I got there, it was pretty much already dark. But every room has a balcony. So I opened the double French doors. The balconies are completely private. You cannot even see the neighboring balconies. That's how private this place is. And when I looked out over the water, the waves were crashing under the moonlight. I slept soundly. It was a wonderful experience. The slight breeze came in and hit me when I was sleeping. I woke up so refreshed. The shower was updated, with the heated flooring, glass shower doors, terrific water pressure. It was perfect. Valet parking. I also tried out their gym. It was beautiful. 10 or so machines, fully stocked white towels to use as you're working out. They had updated gym equipment. They had cleaning supplies to wipe off your machines and wipe them off before you even got on. It was a wonderful experience. I felt like I was at a spa. It was really rejuvenating. A while later, as I was looking at the website again, because I was thinking about going back, I realized that the hotel is horseshoe shaped, like kind of a wide angle horseshoe, but nonetheless, like maybe half a circle is a better explanation of it. And they had rooms that had double balconies, which I didn't know before I stayed there. And I thought, ooh, wouldn't that be fun? A double balcony room. And all that meant was a bigger balcony. My balcony had room for 2 chairs and not much more. The double balconies had room for 2 chairs, plus more chairs if you needed them, tables, and I thought, ooh, and they had a chase lounge on there too. I thought, that is the room I want next. Just like the inn where I stayed previously, this hotel offered off-season rates. This hotel was more known for a wedding venue, but because it was off-season, nobody was traveling, the rates were so cheap. And I thought, okay, I'm going to book my next stay and I'm going to get me a double balcony. I arrived, and to my horror, there was no parking anywhere and the valet service was nowhere to be found. I had to walk a long distance to get to the front of the hotel. Thankfully, I had a suitcase on wheels. There were some festivities or something going on, so there was no parking at all, anywhere. That surprised me because it was off season. I got to my room and I heard talking. Now, the first time this hotel experience, it was superb. It was completely private, quiet. I wasn't disturbed at all by anybody else. So when I heard the talking, I thought, well, maybe that's coming from another room down the hall. And I wasn't quite in the door yet. So I just dismissed it quickly out of my brain. Like, okay, well, that can't be coming from my room, obviously. When I got in the room, though, I heard it louder. And I thought, well, maybe the TV's on. But the TV wasn't on. I went to the balcony to see this big, beautiful double balcony because I really wanted to hit the chaise lounge. And when I opened the doors, to my surprise, because the French doors on this balcony had those little curtains, those little thin sheer curtains. And when I opened the double doors, there were people on my balcony trying to take my chairs. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, what is going on here? So I said, whoa, where are you going with my chairs? Oh, we didn't know the room was occupied. I said, put my chair back, please. So it was 2 people to the right of me on a different balcony, and then 2 people sitting to the left of me on a different balcony. Whereas in the first stay, the balcony was completely private. You couldn't see anybody's balcony. But with this stay, because I had the double balcony, it was like in the middle of that half circle horseshoe shape. The balconies touched the neighboring balconies on the right and left. So the people left the chairs, but then they hopped over my little fence, balcony fence, whatever you call it, and they walked across and hopped over to visit the people on the left side. And I thought, oh boy, this isn't starting out too well, is it? But I was determined to enjoy that chase lounge, especially after having to walk because there was no valet service. I went to use the bathroom and put my toiletries away, and I realized the bathroom was not the same. It was never updated. It was not modern at all. It had no glass doors. It had a white plastic, probably from the Dollar Tree, shower liner and curtain. And they were covered in somebody's hair. You know how shower curtains are staticky sometimes? Somebody's hair was all over this thing, and it really grossed me out. In addition, it was a tub shower, not just a shower like the previous room. And the tub shower was pretty high, like you had to step over the side of the tub. But then the shower head came directly out of the middle of the ceiling over the tub. The water pressure was horrible. And I think there was even some green funk growing on the shower head itself. When I did try to take a shower, the water drizzled. It hardly came out of that shower head. It was so disappointing. It was similar to the first inn I stayed at, where the shower pressure was so horrible I didn't even bother showering there. I ordered room service and fully anticipated eating outside on that balcony, watching the waves crash in that Chase lounge. I was very happy that they had the same exact entrees, because the first time I stayed here, I ordered this delicious fish that was gluten-free, and they still had that available. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. When the fish dish arrived, the portion was really small. It was probably half of what I had before, and the price of it had doubled. So instead of the $30 room service, it's now like $60. I decided, you know what, I don't eat that much anyway, so I'm going to take it outside and enjoy my evening. I also got a sparkling water, so that made my evening too. I went outside with my tray of food. The people were all gathered on the left-sided balcony. When I went out to get in my Chase lounge, they were drinking, they were obnoxious, they were laughing hysterically, just acting like they were having a really good time. So here I was with my plate of food, sat down in my Chase lounge, put my sparkling water on my table side, and they started talking to me. I didn't mind that so much. I didn't mind that they were talking to me. They were kind of trying to include me in the conversation, so I thought that was nice. But it wasn't my kind of conversation. I didn't know these people. So don't get me wrong, I wasn't trying to be a snob, because that's not what it was at all. But, apparently the two couples weren't married. I thought they were married couples who knew each other. One of the men worked for a delivery company, so he was a trucker. And he was there with his girlfriend, not his wife. And the other couple was there because they were having a secret rendezvous behind their spouses' backs. I just smiled, made the best of it, ate my food, told them to have a nice night. It was nice to meet them. I was very cordial. I never let on that I was stunned by anything going on. And I just went inside, got on my bed, watched TV. The pounding rains. I couldn't open the balcony. I couldn't listen to the waves crash. I couldn't watch the waves from my bed. So the experience was much different. I slept in probably recycled air. I didn't have that same refreshing, relaxing experience. In the morning I got up and I went into the gym. But see, each floor had their own gym. I didn't know that. I thought there was just one gym. This gym was dilapidated. There was one treadmill and somebody was on it. The exercise bikes were old. Midway through my routine, the seat fell off. The towels weren't replenished, so there was no hand towel to use. I did get my workout walking back to my car though, because there was still no valet service and I still had to walk quite a distance with my wheeled luggage in tow. A lot of times people think more expensive is better. They think a hotel that's $600 a night has to be way better than a hotel that's $150 a night. But I have a lot of experience traveling, and I can honestly say I've stayed in $60 a night motels that were better than a hotel that costs $600 a night. It's hard to believe, I know, but it's absolutely true. Sometimes it's the fancy schmancies that disappoint us. And at the end of the day, sometimes having less is worth more. Thanks so much for watching today. Take care.